Okay. All right, I think we'll get going, and if anybody comes in, I'll let them in. But just a quick intro before we get started here. My name is James O'Donnell. I'm the program director of the Good Meat Project. We also have Camus Davis, our executive director, here as well. So we started these lowdowns earlier this year as a chance for producers to sort of tackle marketing challenges together and get together once a month on a particular marketing opportunity and challenge, and just hear from other producers and people in the industry who are doing it well, and sort of get the creative juices flowing. So excited to have you all here. And again, we really see this as a chance to tackle marketing issues together, and are glad you're a part of it here with us. So just a few notes about our sponsor. We recently partnered with Grown By, which is a farmer-owned cooperative app for direct-to-consumer sales. So we're happy that they're working with us on this Lowdown series. And for those of you who might want to consider working with them, they're doing a 50% discount on their fee for the next year, if you tell them you heard about the service through us. They're a pretty cool service. They're farmer owned and everything. So if you want to check that out, just email this email address here. We'll also be able to put it in the chat soon if you want to check them out. Before I turn it over to our host, Alex, and our guests, just a quick introduction here. So this topic again is about farmers market strategies. So we hear from a lot of producers through our surveys and producer outreach and things like that, people aren't quite sure how to crack this nut of farmers markets, and people approach it with different strategies and different levels of success. So we just wanted to bring a few different folks together here to talk about what's been working for them and their successes and challenges. So we have Zach and Christina Menchini of Campfire Farms in Oregon. And we also have Nathan Kenyon of Cascadia Meats in Seattle. So Zach and Christina are producers who sell their products at farmers markets. And Nathan actually buys products from farmers and ranchers in his state, and then does a lot of value add products like sausages and things like that he can tell you about. But both of these companies are sort of dealing with the farmers market crowd and all the challenges that come along with that. So looking forward to hearing from them. And then with that, I will turn it over to Alex Miller, our host. Alex, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, James. Thanks to you and Camus as always for getting these organized. Really looking forward to this one today. I'm Alex Miller. I'm from Lick Skillet Farms. We are a grass-based regenerative producer of beef, pork, lamb, poultry products sold direct to the consumers. And as I told folks as we were in the bullpen getting ready for this, that we don't do a good job on farmers markets. I'm like a lot of folks in this arena, really struggle with figuring out where the farmers markets fit into the overall picture and how to take maximum advantage of it. So I'd like to start the questions right there if we could. And to their audience, we want to make clear, we really have a great opportunity here to get two very different perspectives. So we've got Zach and Christina, who are producers, like a lot of the folks in the audience for this broadcast will be. But then we've also got Nathan, who has a very different value proposition, buying from producers and marketing the meat then to farmers markets. So two different ways of approaching farmers markets. Let's start out with Zach and Christina. Why don't you tell us how you approach farmers market and how they fit into your overall business?
Sure thing, Alex. Thank you, and happy to be here. Farmers markets are about a third of what we do, but they really are how we got started. So a great way to find customers early on in a business development, and they are so a really good way to get to know who your target market is, what that demographic that you're seeking to serve is, and then tailor your products to fit them as you mature. And yeah, obviously they're great for cash flow. It's a retail sale, so it's important for that part of the business as we grow and as we move into other types of markets. But yeah, farmers markets are kind of a magical thing, and that people just seem to come with cash, and yeah, spend it there. So yeah, no, we've been well served by farmers markets over the last 5 or 6 years.
Another, like, just to add on to what Zach's saying there, is that we moved to Oregon from the East Coast. So we had zero community when we started, and we needed community connection there. So we used the farmers markets as like how to create our customer base. And we were at every market, like without really, we skipped one a year for a vacation. And as we've grown and now we have 3 employees, we make sure that we don't miss markets so that customers know that we're going to be there. And they can plan on seeing us, plan on spending their money. And as we've gained those customers, they've asked us to offer bulk buying options. We didn't really know much about bulk buying, like a half a hog or then smaller boxes. And our community has said that that's something that they want to do. So we started offering that. And as our business has grown, it's become a pretty big piece of what we do, so that those customers who we met at farmers markets have now moved into kind of a different category, a different third of our revenue stream, which is what we call like wholesale direct to customers or bulk direct to customers. And we've built out a website to support that, so that these people who were once farmers market customers who maybe aren't coming to the market anymore are still going to spend either $200 or $600 with us buying a bulk box so that we can be in their freezer.
So your markets are split roughly 3 ways: this bulk, more traditional e-commerce, and then farmers markets. Is that?
Well, we would say that farmers markets, the e-commerce is bulk, and then wholesale is the remaining 30%.
Got it. Okay.
So
Got
yeah,
it.
wholesale being like to resellers or to
Like
folks
small
like
grocers,
who might
yeah.
value add or restaurants, things like that.
Got it. Got it. Okay, I picked up on that. Good. I want to circle back to the creating the customer base, but first let's hear from Nathan. Nathan, explain what you do and how you're different from what we just heard from Christina and Zach.
Yeah, so I am not a raiser. I don't grow my own animals or anything like that. I pick up on the butchery side of things. That's my training for about the last 10 years. So I started Cascadia Meats as a kind of like what Zach and Christina were just talking about, as a means to reach out my customer and develop that customer base. So Cascadia Meats is predominantly a value-added company. We make sausages, pâtés, terrines, rillettes, stocks, render fats, and things like that, as a means to get some of those products to my customers. So I do pretty much exclusively farmers market sales. I do have very, very small component as wholesale to other restaurants, but that is not something, as I'm doing my planning, that I factor in. It's so small. I haven't had the opportunity to work on that yet because the markets have been so good for me. So I visit 3 markets a week. It's still just me doing it all by myself, all this fun stuff, and kind of continuously adding things as I have the opportunity to. So as you guys were just talking about with the bulk buying, that's my next venture because markets are very seasonally driven. You know, everybody's out and shopping in the summer when the weather's great, and nobody's out in the winter, and markets really in the Seattle area can track down significantly. So an attempt to capture more of that customer base. That's my next step.
Nathan, are you going to the same market 3 times a week, or is it different markets?
Different markets.
Okay.
Yeah. So the ones that I'm a part of are running once a week. I have one of them that goes year round, and then 2 additional ones that are summer focused and are at their conclusion right now.
And Christina, did you say how many markets you attend each week?
Sorry, no, I think we do 2, May through October. So the summer markets are 2 per week. And then we have 1 every other Saturday winter market. And you know, one thing that we've found, at least in the recent past, that 1 every other week winter market has been, on a good day, about 3x what a summer market might be. So we've found that people, you know, once you've got a good, you know, a sizable customer base, people will come out regardless. I mean, the weather's awful. So but it takes time to build that. You know, that we've only seen that in kind of year 6 of our farmers market presence. So
Year 6, that's worth noting.
We're
Yeah.
year 7 right now. And last year was like, yes, we're making some money.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a moment. I need to say something to our audience. Now that you've got a feel for who we're talking to today, please feel free to post your questions for them in the chat. And Camus and James will be monitoring that and then feeding me the questions, and I'll get the questions asked for you. But I can't ask a question that you haven't submitted. So be sure and take advantage of that chat. While those are coming in, let's jump right into the nitty gritty. I've got 2 big issues that already have come up, and one is, all right, when you're going to the market, and this is mostly for Christina and Zach, you've got different channels. How do you think about pricing across these different channels?
Our 2 markets are similar enough, kind of socioeconomically and demographically, where we don't use dynamic pricing at different markets. I think that would be a pretty slick way to do it if you've got a market that can support a higher retail price. We just don't we don't get that cute with it, I guess. But our retail pricing is really based off of our wholesale price. So that's the place that we start. We need to make sure that we can, you know, sell a pound of sausage at our wholesale price, which is usually a 30% discount off retail for legs and shoulders. Mostly we're talking about pork. Pork is our primary enterprise. We also sell chicken and duck, but those are somewhat different calculations. But just using pork as an example, we calculate our wholesale price and then mark up our retail above and beyond that because I think, you know, as I'm sure Nathan can attest to, you know, going to one farmer's market is a big day of work, and you should be paid significantly more than you know, dropping off cases of sausage at a grocery store. So we don't use dynamic pricing.
We didn't get to that until maybe like year 4 or so, when we were producing more than we could sell through our farmers markets, and we were getting frustrated at our farmers markets for not moving more product. So I said, okay, well, we're going to need a wholesale account, but we can't make the math work. And that's when we started looking at like, okay, what do our wholesale prices need to be? And then, yeah, it feels shitty to bump up our retail prices, but that's more of a like business oriented way to do it than the scrappy startup farmer way to do it.
So let's see if we can capture this, because this might be an important lesson learned. You started out saying we're going to price based on what we think is reasonable for a farmer's market. But then when you tried discounting that to get to a wholesale price, you were at a price point where you couldn't make any money. And that's when you said, we got to start.
And part of that is because we weren't valuing our own labor appropriately.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you value your labor now? How do you fold that into your pricing? What's a profitable day look like, given your labor and all the full day that it takes to go to a farmer's market?
Well, like, I mean, what the margin is on a retail sale, is that kind of the crux of the question?
Well, and also the amount of volume you need just to cover the labor and the hassle cost of going to a market.
Yeah. So the labor and the hassle cost is we need to break $800. And that's like a break even price. Or it was a couple of years ago when we last calculated it. But we're looking at more like, I think our average right now is about $1,800 a market, with winter markets being higher than that.
Winter market's been higher, yeah.
And retail margins are between 40 and 60%, depending on the cut.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Just as another data point for the folks listening in, Joel Salatin, at least a couple of years ago in his marketing course, says that if you're not doing $2,000 at a farmer's market, you can't afford to go to it. And that's I'm just offering that as a data point. We don't use that number ourselves, but I know a lot of people are listening to Joel, what he's got to say. So Nathan, how do you do any of the dynamic pricing as you go to your different markets, or is everything the same?
I didn't feel that it was fair to my customer base. I think I want to be as consistent throughout my community as I possibly can. I do have some demographic and socioeconomic changes throughout the markets that I do. And yes, that does create some conflict at some of those that maybe aren't as affluent as the others. At some of my markets, people are just throwing cash at me, and others it's a little bit more of a hard sale. But I've also found that market, that one particular market that is a little bit more challenging for me, that's the group that I've got the best regulars at, because I've made that effort and put in that time to explain why it's worth to spend this extra money when I am literally selling at that market in a reduced cost grocery store, and they can go inside and get their sausages for $1.99 a pound. So it is challenging when I have to deal with that, but you put in the time and effort and build those connections, and it turns around and makes it worth it. So
now, what do you think are the key values that are keeping them from going inside and spending $1.99 a pound?
So I think one, the market itself attracts a certain group of people that do understand the value of shopping at a farmer's market versus going into that reduced cost grocery store, and then having those connections with those producers. I mean, I can tell people, and I hear from the other vendors as well, this is what I've done this week. This is what's special. This is what we have new. This is what's coming up on the horizon. This is why you should continue to come visit me. And, we're doing fun and exciting different things on a regular basis. And it's going to keep you in a healthier diet and allow you to maybe expose yourself to some things you might not normally have that opportunity to.
Yeah. And you may have said this, but I'm juggling a lot of balls here as I try to look at the chat and come up with questions. What if it's $1.99 inside, what is your closest comparable product priced at?
Yeah, I start with my sausages at $13 a pound.
13, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they go up from there, and I do get it. It's hard. I just sold my first pack this past week at $17 a pound, and I wasn't sure if my customer base was willing to accept that. But fortunately, putting in that work and explaining and having those conversations about why your product is worth that price point eventually does pay off, excuse me.
I think one of the biggest problems most of us producers have, and maybe Nathan and Christina, you can speak up on this, is we just don't have the guts to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have the cojones to walk in and say, this is worth it. You want to pay $17 a pound for this, and here's why. And we keep mapping ourselves back onto Costco, which is an absolutely ridiculous thing to do. But I just have talked to any number of producers that say, well, I can't charge more than $4 a pound for it because they can get it for $1.89 in Costco. And that logic is going to kill us. Nathan and Christine, do you have any comments about that?
I find it's really helpful just to talk to fellow producers because we all share that, whether it's a flower farmer or a crafts person. Everybody has a hard time valuing their time and building that price in because it's already like the cost of just doing business as a small producer in the United States is just so different, from Costco. So you talk to people who are in a similar boat, and we talk to fellow pork producers, and we look at what their prices are, and and we hadn't done the math on our eggs in a while, and our neighbors were like, hey, we're raising prices on eggs this year. And I was like, you know what, we'll just match it and keep it moving.
For those in the audience, if you can get good hard data on what other producers are doing, is sort of like what Christina is saying, is you need to hear from other folks and understand that they're pulling it off. There's no reason you can't pull it off. There's some good data out there. For example, North Carolina has data on their average prices of direct to consumer pastured poultry. And if you look at those numbers, it will embolden you to do the right thing on your pricing. So go seek out that data and seek out other producers. I think that's great advice, Christina.
Well, another note on that, Alex, sorry to interrupt, but the USDA AMS, Agricultural Marketing Service, publishes monthly publishes like pastured poultry price. You can just Google like USDA AMS pastured poultry report, and it gives you a range of, you know, the like, these are real numbers that people are using out there. They're anonymous, but yeah, like whatever your product is, search that out. I mean, make sure you're looking at the pastured item, you know, they consider that a value add, which it is, of course, but yeah, this public information.
But then there's a whole new level of boldness that comes with saying, but I've got value added products as well. I don't just have chicken breast. I've got chicken sausage, and that's really where I think people need to be more bold than many are. So that's great.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead, Nathan.
Add one more thing. I think also as you're looking at your pricing and comparing it to everybody else, whether that's the person next to you, that vendor next to you, or the grocery store down the street or Costco, I think it's also really important to understand who your target audience is. My target audience is not that person that is buying that $1.99 a pound sausage. My target audience is somebody that understands the value and is willing to spend that extra money. And also that means that they have that extra money. So I do recognize that I have excluded a group of people from my products. And that is a struggle to get those people into my fold. But understanding who your target audience is another really important component.
Probably the single most frequent conversation we have with our customers is along those lines. It's if you want to pay $4.50 for a bird, go to Costco. I can't touch their cost. They can't touch my quality. You got to decide what it is you're buying. And you're right. People will sort themselves out naturally if you just make that clear to them that if you want to buy a $2 chuck, go to Costco. If you want to buy a boutique, come to me. But I think it takes a certain amount of experience or hunger or something just to be able to have that conversation. Let's change gears here just a little bit. Let's talk about using farmers markets to create customer bases, because I think a lot of people have that as they're going in strategy. And I know when we first started, we said, okay, that'll be the only way that we use farmers market, because we so much prefer not going to farmers market. We were trying to say, well, we'll just go there and build up an email base or whatever. It didn't quite work out that way. But do you have any of you have experiences about how to use farmers markets to build up a customer base, and then how to keep it sounds like both of you have very loyal customers. What have you done to instill that kind of loyalty that other people might be able to replicate?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the sales funnel, right? Like that's how you get in front of them. That's how you learn about your customers. You collect email addresses. We don't like have an email sign up sheet at the market. We used to, and that's probably a good idea. I think that's something we abandoned that pre-COVID, but we should get that. It's frustrating to try to transpose folks' scrawled email addresses into your email marketing software. But we use the Square point of sale system, which does a good job capturing a lot of email addresses, and you can pull them out of there. You don't get everybody, but you get a lot of them. We have an email newsletter that we publish probably quarterly, so it's not a huge burden. And we try to kind of alternate like a big sales kind of newsletter versus this is just like a peek behind the curtain kind of newsletter, because those do add value. We always include a little bit of a call to action in those email newsletters. But it's not like the primary focus of every single newsletter. Anything else? Anything to add, Christina?
I don't think so. I think that covered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything before we get to Nathan on this one? Anything about any advice you could have on moving customers from occasional farmers markets customers to the bulk customer segment that you said some people that stopped coming to farmers market but had turned into bulk? How did you manage that transition, or did it just happen naturally?
It's a savings. It's cheaper.
It's cheaper. The farmers market becomes less convenient in the wintertime. Like we really push it in October as people are, getting there's the kind of instinct to get ready for winter, to stock the freezer. And the holidays are upcoming. Yeah, now is the time to encourage folks to, stock up and get those bulk sales. And yeah, it's a deal. If you're a committed customer, it's a no-brainer. You know, if you don't have a chest freezer, we offer a few different options that fit in a home freezer. And it's always, you know, things that we have a lot of. It's shoulders, it's sausages, it's chops. It's not bacon and tenderloins and baby back ribs. You know, those are the things that we don't put in bulk boxes, you know, except in extreme circumstances.
Extreme circumstances being our one option, and it's $665 for a half a hog box. That's the only way that you can get bacon at a discounted price. But I mean,
I'm sorry, Christine, could you say that again? It was garbled.
Oh, sorry. Zach said extreme circumstances, and we just mean that, like, there's only one discounted way. There's only one way to get discounted bacon, and that's by spending $675 on a half a hog. You need a chest freezer with that. But we know that, like, part of that, you know, Nathan was talking about knowing your customers, and we know our customers are busy. We know our customers want to eat our sausage on a Tuesday night, and it's not just a special occasion thing. So we create these boxes that work for us. We've got one called the box of pork. It's $250. It's all the stuff that we want to move. It fits in a regular freezer, and it's ground pork, chops, shoulder roast, and sausages. And it's designed for, it's just like normal. It's not necessarily special or sparkly, but it's a way that we can get in their freezer. And then once we're in there, like, once people find their pastured meat producer and they find a way to buy that works for them, then you don't have to think about it. They don't have to think about it anymore. So we have a lot of repeat customers who have bought our box of pork. Then maybe they go on a half hog. Maybe one year they split a half hog box with somebody else, but we're in there.
Are they doing pickup of their bulk orders at the farmers markets, or is that a different delivery method altogether?
We encourage them to. That's easiest for us. And a lot of times people just want it to be easy. They want it to be a natural, good relationship. And so, you know, I feel like telling our customers what is easiest for us and how to work with us is, most of them are like, cool, I'll do whatever you say.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice. Nathan, I know for many farmers at farmers markets, a big part of the value proposition is, well, you're buying directly from the farmer. Obviously, in your case, they're not doing that. How do you establish a relationship with your customers? And obviously, you've got a devoted following that's willing to pay some very nice prices for your product. How did all that happen?
Yeah, and that's all part of having that one-on-one interaction for me. Being able to talk to my customers. You know, I see a lot of people every day at my market. Some of them are regulars, some of them I've never met before. And get those questions and having that frank, honest conversation about where my product comes from, why it's priced the way it is. So, you know, all my animals are coming from people like you who are either 100% grass-fed or you know, GMO free on their feed, sustainable growing and raising practices. I'm fortunate that one of my producers is also slaughtering their own animals. They have the ability to do the slaughter. And so I can talk about these things that highlight the quality of my product. And then, you know, yes, there are plenty of other options for value-added product at the markets coming from those ranchers. And that's where I can kind of put my own best foot forward and say, well, I am the one that is grinding these spices. I'm the one that's stuffing these sausages. I'm the one that is making that terrine and cooking down that stock for you. And so if you have a big thing for me, I live in an area, and my markets attract a lot of people with dietary restrictions. And so I do a lot to accommodate those dietary restrictions to the best of my ability. A number of my customers, for example, have allium allergies. And so I make sure to regularly have allium-free products that are available to them. And when I have something that's unique and different that week, I grab their attention when they're walking by in the market. And they might not follow me on social media or haven't signed up for my newsletters. And I will grab them and say, hey, I made this for you today. And having that interaction, you know, they're like, holy smokes, I talked to you once like 2 weeks ago.
That's great. Nice job.
And that's, you know, so those are the things that I'm able to do to kind of put that foot forward. and and having that ability to say, this was me. I did this from where the wonderful hardworking ranchers and growers left off. I do a lot of stuff too with utilizing products at the market as well. So with these value-added sausages that I do, for example, I'm constantly grabbing peppers, for example, from the chili producer right next door to me, and I can say, these chilies came from that person who I just saw you buying 4 pounds of chilies from, or that cheese producer right across the way that I see you go to every week. This is their cheese and this product. So using products there at the market, having those conversations, and I take a lot of notes on my customers. I write down what their names are, if they have kids, if they have dietary restrictions, if they, X, Y, or Z, and that's all part of my internal process that helps me develop that relationship with those customers.
Great. Nathan, I want to come to you in just a few minutes and ask a question about how producers might strike up a partnership like the ones you have with your producers. But first, I want to get to a question that's in the chat, and this is primarily going to be for Nathan and Christina. It deals with the employees that you're using to go to the farmers market. And I want to ask a broader question. Just given the amount of work that's involved in farmers market, any pointers you have about hiring people to help with that, minimizing the effort, anything you can do to reduce the labor or to address the labor issue, I think would be useful for our audience.
Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead. Oh,
Well,
okay.
as I said in the chat there, Jolene, that like what draws people to us is that they don't trust grocery store meat, and they can't get a straight answer, and there's greenwashing, and they want somebody just to explain the product to them. Like, is this good? And I mean, that can mean a lot of different things. So we need somebody to understand the farm. We need somebody to understand our practices and how we do things. And people, all sorts of customer concerns, whether it's concerns around slaughter or it's concerns about like what's inside sausages. And I don't think we've made a decision to not hire people to only work market. We want somebody who is going to be able to know about animal chores and who knows our slaughterhouse. So we've hired people who want to work the market, and in addition to working on the farm. And that's also how we've filled out our positions, because our positions aren't necessarily full-time positions that we're hiring for, but we can make them full-time positions, and that helps with employee retention if we include a market day in there.
When they're working at the market, are they working on a sales commission, or is it just continue to be
Hourly?
We still pay them hourly. Yeah. Another thing about that is, like, we only do 2 farmers markets, right? So like, and that's because those are 2 good farmers markets. So just don't overcommit yourself to markets that aren't making you any money. Sometimes it takes a little while to build up a base, but don't overextend yourself just for the sake of showing up at a market that's not profitable.
Right.
Yeah. And we were at a market, that is closest to us. Like, one of our values is that we just want regular people who live around us to eat good food. And when our market was not making us enough money, it was at like $400 a week, year 2. We went to the board and said, like, I would love to be here. I see a lot of other market vendors leaving this market, going further into Portland, but like, they have nice stuff here. We want to be here. And this is not a good business decision. And they were all like, oh my God, you're only making $400 a day here. And they had no idea. So they upped their ad spending. They leaned into some online sales. Like, they really responded to that in order to retain us. And I think that was important to talk about that stuff.
So clarification, this was when you said you went to the board, it was the board that was overseeing the farmers market?
Correct.
Okay. And so
it was our market manager. And then she asked,
gotcha.
yeah, she invited us to a meeting.
Right. Well, then all the producers probably benefited from that. That's, yeah, since they're promoting it. Okay, good. So Nathan, now to you. I think you offer a very different approach for producers who would like to see their product moving through the local market and farmers markets, but aren't about to go to a farmer market themselves. Talk about the relationship you have with your producers. How do you enter into those relationships? If any pointers you could offer that for producers that were interested in finding their version of you, what should they look like and how should they, any pointers you can offer?
Yeah, so I started off with the producers I was supplying from. I kind of dovetailed through a previous employment job that I had had. I was working at a retail butcher shop prior, and through that had developed a number of these relationships already. And I was able to, as I started my business, to maintain those partnerships and those relationships. Then a big part of it, as I've gotten to the markets, and I mean, there's so much great things happening out there that people that are bringing amazing products, and I just go and talk to them. You know, I make sure to go to the markets early, set up early, and then that's my opportunity to go around and create those relationships with the other vendors and ask those questions. You know, tell me, you know, like what we want our customers to be doing. I'm asking those same questions. And so I'm working with a producer of lamb. I haven't been able to regularly, consistently produce lamb sausages, and that's an area that is a shortcoming for me that I want to fill. So I've been talking to this local lamb producer, and it started off with, you know, tell me about you. You guys, you know, tell me about your products. Tell me about your practices, and then that was at the beginning of the summer when they weren't in a position to be able to take me on as an account, even if I'm a smaller volume for them. But now, you know, I go and say hi every week when I see them. And now that things are slowing down for everybody, we're able to re-engage that conversation about what that might look for when they come to do their next run of slaughter. And if they're going to be able to hold off on cuts for me that I can then kind of siphon off throughout the year, or if it's going to be one big run and I have to maintain that inventory on my side of the equation. You know, and it's just kind of making those connections. So if you aren't in the market yet, or even if it's not something that you're interested in, go to the markets and find people like myself, or go to, if you have the opportunity to have butcher shops in your area, go to your local butcher shop and just introduce yourself and start talking to them and then tell them about what you're all about and ask what they're about. I think, you know, it's just like you're trying to do with your customers, you're trying to do the same thing with your suppliers. And also recognizing that that there are times when people are too busy and you might just have to stop for a couple months or, you know, whatever, and that's okay. So that's been a big part of it. Like I was saying with this lamb producer, we couldn't do that this summer. That wasn't viable for them, and that's okay. But I am excited about their product. I buy it from them regularly for my own personal consumption. I love their quality of what they're doing, and I love their practices. It makes sense for me, and we're trying to figure out a price point that'll make sense for my customers. And so having those conversations is really, really important.
Yeah. Just a quick word about your pricing when you're sourcing from the ranchers. Are they selling it to you at their, what they would consider a normal wholesale price, or is there a different arrangement there?
Yeah, so that's kind of what the topic of conversation that we're currently having. They have wholesale customers already, and so we're at that price point. It's not at a price point that I'm comfortable passing on to the customer, my customers. So we're trying to figure out a creative way, a creative solution. So some of that is asking them, when you do your next slaughter, here are some products that I know from my butchery training that will do really, really wonderful in a sausage. And it's going all straight to their trim that they're using on their end. So I'm talking to them about buying products that they don't normally wholesale or even retail. So that's a nice big advantage of building those relationships. So they're now like, oh yeah, we can totally cut your lamb a little differently, and we can save that, or rather than it going into something that they don't have the opportunity to utilize, and maybe they're selling, you know, in this particular example, they're selling onto the commodity market. And I can take that product from them at a higher price point, so it works for them. it's a product that they don't normally sell, and that really works well for me. And so we're getting creative on how to bring that wholesale price point down to a point that makes sense for me and my customer base.
That's great. That's great. Shift gears again. Let's talk a little bit about the physical setup that you have at the farmers markets. What do you take? What's your stand look like? What kind of branding do you have visible? All those sorts of things. Who wants to start?
Yeah. James, we've got that photo of our booth. Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. I have them, all three of them in a drive, so I'll try and
Cool.
pull up that.
It's hard to make it look like you're not selling coolers, we'll say.
Yeah. Good one.
Oh, that's
You want this one?
that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we first started, we worked with like an art student to create a logo. And then at about year 5, we worked with a designer to create a logo. It was kind of like, the first one was at a $900 price point. The second one was at more of like a, $5,000 to $7,000 price point. And I think it's super worth it. I mean, we were in a position where we could do that. But it has definitely like created some brand affinity. We've been able to do things like merch, or Zach's wearing a Campfire hat, and our customers really enjoy that. But like I said before, transparency is incredibly important. Literally like the transparent packaging, and being able to see what you have. People like a butcher counter and to like look through that glass and see the cut of meat. And they can't do that when we're using coolers, but coolers make the most sense for our like moving our stuff around. So we've got this signboard here that has photos. James, will you do the close-up of the signboard or the next picture? There we go, that one. And this has been really helpful for us. It has the name of the product, the price, and then any sort of questions that would come up. And these signs came up after a couple of years of answering the same question. How many chops per packages? What's the weight on that? Does your bacon have nitrates in it? And it's like, our sign for bacon says, yeah, contains nitrates, contains sugar, tastes awesome. And that just like weeds out. I don't want to have that conversation about nitrates one more time in my whole life. So there's the answer. And people can see what the product is. Italian sausage. What does that mean? Oh, right. Pasta red sauce. Okay. Yeah. Now I know what we're talking about here. What does it look like? And so that sign is super helpful for that.
So we've got photos of like dishes on this sign, and we've got some photos of animals. We'd have a couple of animal photos on this sign, but we have another sign that has photos of animals kind of in their habitat on the farm. And we get some pushback once or twice a year. The people are like, I don't want to look at its face, but those people aren't your customers. So yeah, just they can keep moving. But yeah, keep the price. The pricing is very small on these signs, which was intentional. Like, the pricing's on there, but it's kind of hard to see. So that's okay.
Well, it makes them stop and spend some time with it too. Like the picture draws you in. There's text to spend time with.
We always like, it's always nice when we have a line. We don't often, we don't always have a line at the farmer's market, but I have found that if there's a line and people look at this thing for a few minutes, they tend to buy another thing. I don't like to mark things as sold out. I think that encourages people to be like, oh, well, I'll just get it next week, So if we don't have anything, we just take the sign down and get it out of there, because these are the things that are available. These are the things you should be choosing from. You shouldn't have any like, oh shoot, I missed out on the breakfast sausage this week. Buy some ground pork instead,
Yeah, there's plenty here to buy.
But opinions do differ on that last point there. Some folks think, oh, well, I want to advertise the products that I might have next week. But I think it's clearest to just move on.
Right. And James, did you have a third photograph as well? Is there another one, Christina?
Oh, that was that's our t-shirt. And that's part of the branding package that we did with the guy who did our logo, was to, we've got a little slogan there: happy animals, healthy soils. And that we've also put on bumper stickers and water bottle stickers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you sell that merch at the farmer's market?
We sell merch at the farmer's market. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, big sign is not magnetic. The big sign is wood, and we put it on with double-sided sticky tape.
Gotcha. Nathan, can you talk anything about your stand and your branding?
Yeah, so I take my approach as from a butcher perspective. So for me, having worked retail butchery for years and years and years, being able to see the product is super important. So for me, I have display packs that are out in tubs of ice. I have a friend who is phenomenally talented with woodworking and made these gorgeous little display bins for me that I take. I mean, it's an extra cooler that I have to take just of ice, sometimes 2 coolers, depending on how hot it is out. So it is extra equipment that I take, but it allows people to see the product. Looking at Zach and Christina's display board there, I love that idea. I wish more of the farmers around my markets would do something like that, because it allows people to see it. For me, from that retail perspective, people want to see your product, and shuffling through coolers is not it's not what I want to be shopping for. And also from you guys is trying to keep your product cold. When people are going in and out of those coolers on middle of July or August when it's 100 degrees outside here in the Northwest, or hotter elsewhere out in the country, that's detrimental to your product. So so having that some kind of visual representation is really, really helpful. I also have a big signage that talks about the names of the products, maybe some descriptors and price point that I find works really well. Because I think one of the big things that I observe, and also how I shop at a farmer's market, or even just at a general store, like I kind of am not always like, there's a big line, for example, and I don't want to wait and get to the front of the line until I can see what the product is. So having something that as you're walking by through a crowd of people that you can quickly look at and see and has all the information right there for you, I think is really, really helpful. One of the things that I have had to do is make some adjustments to what those display packs look like. I do have kind of what I call my sacrificial packs, and I use them week after week, and they get thawed and frozen and thawed and frozen, and they are pretty gnarly after they've reached their life expectancy, and that's just the way it goes. But I have had people that will try to grab those packs, so I have to be, a big visual, like these are not for you, these are display only. So that's been something that I've kind of had to contend with. So something to think about if you're going to go that route. But if you're selling cuts, obviously a display case like what I have can be a challenge because you don't want to lose that big old ribeye. So something like pictures, I think, is really, really wonderful with descriptors. I think I love that idea. I'm going to totally steal that, guys. I hope you don't mind.
We stole it from someone else.
Yeah. Great, because you want to be able to convey as much information as you possibly can to your customer. And do it in a manner that maybe is going to keep that line moving, or project to those wallflowers that are in the back that maybe aren't as comfortable approaching you and having that conversation. You see people all the time that are just kind of walking by 5 to 6 to 10 feet back, and if your information is really small, they can't see that from that far. So you need to be able to project that information out as far as you possibly can.
There's one more thing on the signboard there. At one point we had a price list. We don't have that now, but I just encourage people when they're like, oh, I've spent my budget for the week, or, oh, I didn't know you guys were here. I'm like, take a picture of it and do your meal planning with us later on the couch. And people enjoy doing that.
We've got time for me to squeeze in one more question before I turn it back over to the showrunners. Here's a standard end of the show question. What's the most important lessons you've learned that you need to share with folks?
For me, it's been perseverance. I'm just finishing up my second summer. So you guys were talking about going to some of your markets and not making hardly any money. And I've had a couple that it took some time to get there, and it is hard because, yes, the market runs for 4 hours, but for me to go to where I keep all my product, pick it up, contending with traffic, getting to the market, setting up, breaking down, going back and unloading and washing and cleaning and everything. It is a 9 to 10 hour day sometimes.
Mhm.
And so yes, it is a long, grueling day. It is hard. And when you are coming home with $300 to $400 in your pocket, it is hard to justify that. So, but I've been fortunate enough where I've been, some of them, I kind of stuck it out and I recognize the value of the market at that location in that neighborhood, and took the time to make those efforts in developing that customer basis. Same thing with some of my products. There are some of my products, admittedly, I have one sausage that comes to mind that's my least favorite sausage. I never eat it. It's got some ingredients that I just don't enjoy, but I know my customers love. And so, you know, being able to sell those things, and I am not a natural salesperson, it's hard for me, but I was about to get rid of this product. And before I did, I was like, you know, let me just talk about it. When people ask me what my favorite sausage is, let me highlight this one a little more. And it's now my #2 bestseller. And I cannot get rid of it despite it being my least favorite. So, you know, being willing and you know, putting through that effort and knowing whatever your break-even point is, or you know, as long as you're willing to stick it out to develop that customer basis and get those sales. I did drop out of another one where I gave it 2.5 months and it didn't ever take off. And I had to tell that market, I'm sorry, it's not financially feasible for me to continue to be here. But, you know, I gave it a good time and I sucked it up, and I lost that money by my time and effort in going out there. But I'll give it another shot at some point in the future once I kind of have that opportunity to revisit. But so stick it out, have the gumption. It might be a slow process. I mean, it took you, Zach and Christina, you guys are saying it wasn't until what, year 6 that things were really bustling for you. It's a process, just like starting a farm or any business. It's not going to explode right off the bat, and stick with it.
Christine, Zach, in our closing moments, have you got a lesson learned that you can share?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Mine would be saying no to things and separating what, like, me personally gets excited about and what is good for a good opportunity for the business. We did a lot of pop-up markets or collaboration with friends and that sort of thing. And it was just a waste of energy that I didn't realize was so precious. Yeah.
Just quickly to add, like, you know, you're going to the farmer's market multiple times per week. This is a huge part of your daily life. Invest in systems that make it easier for you. Like, do not mess with chest freezers. Like, put up a walk-in. Find the right size coolers that are easy for your body to lift. Like, don't mess around with those gigantic coffin-shaped coolers. Like, they're just way too big. We use like the Coleman Extreme 50-liter coolers, and like, swear by them. They're great. They're not as expensive as some I mean, they're almost as good and half the price of like the fancy coolers. We have a loading dock that we can back the truck right up to, and you know, we don't lift things in and out of the van. It just rolls in and out. So like, figure out systems that make, because you're going to destroy your body doing this multiple times per week if you don't make the right systems.
And that's like coming from, like, we've both destroyed our bodies. And and then when your body doesn't work, you can't work.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So listen, from my perspective, thanks to all three of you, Camus and James, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap us up. But I think this has been a very educational session, and really appreciate your finding these great folks to talk to us today. Camus, James?
Yeah, thank you. We just have a few minutes here. I think Christina, thanks for answering Ronaldo's question in the chat. Ronaldo asked, how do you keep the coolers cold if you're in and out of them? And Christina, I think you mentioned ice packs in the summer, but most other seasons are good if they're full enough with frozen product. Camus, I'm just seeing if we can squeeze in one more question here. Do you have one, Camus?
Sure, unless anyone in the audience wants to chime in and ask one more question. You do, you can come off mute and
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Tony, go ahead.
Tony, yeah. How about on the, so you get your coolers back home, do you have a walk-in cooler or a walk-in freezer, you just put them in, or have you found a way to streamline the sort of that shuffle from coolers to your freezers?
Yeah, so post-market is super important. We will because our markets are Saturday, Sunday, the first thing we do when we get home from the Saturday market is repack coolers for the following day. So we'll pack for the Saturday market on Friday or earlier in the week because we can fit the coolers in the walk-in freezer. That's another thing that helps keep the product really cold. You're bringing cold coolers to the market. You're not putting frozen products into hot coolers, right? That immediately starts the thawing process. Then on post-market on Sunday, those coolers just go back into the walk-in because we're exhausted and we don't need to be unpacking coolers at that point. But that product that comes out of those coolers is also the first out for orders that are going out the following week if we've got, so it's just to keep things moving. And then those coolers get fully unpacked later in the week, and then the whole process starts over again.
Thank you.
Our walk-in's not huge. It's 8 by 10 by 12 feet. It's quite tall. It's an odd shape. We bought a used box on like freezer box on Craigslist and bought a new compressor and had that professionally installed. So it's worth every penny.
Got it. Anybody else in the audience wants to chime in? I have time for one more quick one. Okay. I'm just going to squeeze in one last one. And I just wanted to ask about, especially Nathan, you're walking through customers through rillettes and pâtés and some of these products some people might be unfamiliar with. Christina and Zach, I'm sure you're doing the same thing with some cuts that people might be less familiar with. Are you guys using recipe cards, or is that like a person-to-person storytelling thing that you're doing with customers? How are you working through that?
I'm doing all mine person to person. I haven't, that is on my goal of things to get to this winter, to spend some more time on those recipe cards and getting some more of those recipes out there. I do talk with a lot of my customers about meal prepping and planning, and I think a lot of people assume, or I've found that a lot of people think of like sausage as something that you eat in a bun, and I do a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily meant to be eaten in a bun. I might still case it to keep it a little more versatile, but yeah, so a lot of those just one-on-one conversations, especially on the charcuterie side of things, those extra value-added products like the pâtés or the rillettes and such. A lot of one-on-one conversations. A lot of social media too. Social media is a big part of that as well. It's really easy to reach a larger group of people in a smaller amount of time through something like social media or newsletters.
Great. Zach, Christina, anything to add on that before we wrap up?
We used to do recipe cards, but they're a pain in the ass to format and print, and it was just a time suck. And the way I cook is like, and just put some of this in there. And so you had to really like pay, it was like recipe development, which is a whole different job. So I just kind of have my favorite internet recipes and honestly keep Post-it notes in the cash box for market. And they're like, what do you do with this? And I'm like, here, Google this.
I think a slick way to do it would be to put like little QR codes on those signs that are on the signboard and with like a link to it, because all the good, all the recipes are out there, right? Just it's all on the internet.
I'm not doing those signboards again this year, Zach.
Another thing on the to-do list.
All right. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but thank you, Christina, Nathan, Zach, for joining us. Thank you, Alex, for hosting as always. And just a quick shout out, our next Lowdown is on November 10th, and Nathan set us up pretty well. It's about selling to butcher shops. So we're going to hear from a butcher shop and a producer who work together. So go ahead and register for that if you'd like. And I will email out the recording to everybody. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.